Okay, next we will be discussing mallet instruments. So you generally have the basic mallet instruments in any band hall would be bells, xylophone, vibraphone, and possibly marimba. Now the marimba, which I'm standing behind here, is the largest of the instruments, generally about 4.5-ish octaves, and it's made out of wood. Generally, sometimes rosewood, if not more of a synthetic wood, so that way it doesn't really get damaged too much. Now, the position of my body, just like all the rest of the instruments, snare drum, timpani, bass drum, everything. I'm again utilizing what I call the Goldilocks philosophy. I don't want to be too far away that I'm having to reach and hit the instrument, and I'm not looking to be too close that my hands again are pulled back. I want to be in a comfortable position that when I bring my mallets up to play, my mallets are striking the desired spot right in the middle of the instrument. Okay. Now, when striking the instrument, okay, if you're familiar with the piano, we have the white notes and then we have the black notes. So on the white notes, the bottom notes, you want to strike in the center of the instrument. The one spot you generally do not want to strike is what's called the node or the nodal point, which is where the string goes through the key, okay, or the bar, and you'll get a sound like this. Versus, okay, so you want to be careful of that. Now, when you play with on the top or the black keys or the accidentals, there's two spots that you can play. If it's a slow enough piece, you generally want to try to play in the center of the bar as well. Again, no nodal point. It's dead. Now, let's say you play something fast. What you're doing is, this will be maybe later on, is I'm playing at the edge of the bar closest to me. Okay? And that is totally okay to play at the edge. It makes it easier to maneuver around the instrument. Now, another item. When you're playing, and let's say you're playing something, you're playing like 8th notes or 16th notes, and you have to play something like this on one note. Okay, what I'm doing is, if you can see my mallet heads, I'm playing, so my mallet heads are like this. One is on top of the other. So instead of striking directly in the center, I'm just slightly off of the center. But I'm as close to the center as possible, but I'm not trying to play like this. I'm just playing like this. Because this is easier. I feel when you play like this, eventually what you could do is catch your stick, okay? And then what you're doing is you're really trying to make two mallets hit the same spot right after each other, as opposed to having a little bit more space, and you're still getting a good sound. Okay? So just be aware of that. And the item, the way you can approach that with the upper notes is you can actually do that, same thing, or you can actually play one hand in the middle and one hand at the edge of the bar. Okay? Now, when rolling, again, the same principle applies. The higher, or I should say, the smaller the striking surface, the faster the hand speed, the larger, the slower. So if I'm up here on the high end of the marimba, notice how fast my hand speed is. Now, if I'm on the bottom end, okay, now those were some Robert Van Cise Vic Firth mallets. These are Vic Firth what is it? It is a 232. So now if I'm on the bottom end, now my hand speed is going to be drastically slower. Okay? If you notice, my hand speed is really slow. And the idea, just like with any instrument, is you want to get the natural hum out of the drum. You don't want it to be, you don't want to hear your mallets or your hands striking. You don't want to hear the pulsation of whatever the roll is, if that makes sense. Now, again, the idea, we talked about this with timpani, is when you're playing a roll, obviously, hopefully this should go without saying, you want to play a single stroke roll. I don't really know anybody, I mean, maybe on xylophone you might have a pattern that needs to be doubled, something like that, but you generally wouldn't play a roll and play a double stroke on a mallet instrument. You wouldn't go. again, you want to try to make sure that you have at least maybe 2 sets of mallets. You have a more of an articulate pair, and maybe something that's a little bit more of a warmer, rounder sound. So that way, if you have to play something along those lines, you have the proper tools, if you will. Because you really wouldn't want to play something that has to be very articulate with these going like. I mean, you can kind of hear it, but a little bit, not as much as this. Okay, just like you wouldn't want to have to play a slow roll at a soft volume going. With these mallets kind of give you a little bit more of a warmer sound. Okay, so again, positioning yourself so you can strike the center of the bar. If it's fast, you can also use the edge of the bar, which is totally okay. Okay, now one other thing, please keep in mind, just like everything else, when you're playing, you always want to keep your hands right in the center of your body, like this, okay? Now, if I'm playing a two octave scale and I go, if you noticed, as I shifted up, my body went with it, and then I came down as I came down to the bottom end of the octave. You're allowed to move with the music, okay? Now, I'm not saying to stand behind the instrument and dance, okay? But what I am saying is that you don't want to plant yourself here and now watch what I have to do. Now I'm having to reach across my body. That's very uncomfortable. You want to position yourself that as I'm playing, I'm moving, and I'm staying with my hands. I'm staying with my hands in the front, right in front of my body. Okay, so I'm able to move with the instrument. Okay, now one other item. What I like to talk to my students about is the position of their music stand. I've kind of talked about it, but I want to show you actually how I like to set it up and how I prefer my students to set up their music stand. Now, when I have them set up their music stand, what I always ask them to do is to put their music stand down this low. This is my own personal opinion. Your band directors might ask you to raise them up. I will explain to you why I employ this technique. The reason why is because when you're looking at the instrument, for the most part, when you're striking a drum, I can read the notes on a snare drum part, and I know if my hands are in the right position, I'm going to strike the drum and I'm going to hit it where I need to hit the drum. Whereas with mallets, I'm looking at the notes, I'm looking at the music, but I'm also having to look at all the notes, all the different keys on the instrument. So what happens is you're focusing your eyes on the music, then you're having to look down, and within like a matter of a second, you're having to reconfigure your eyes and your body position and everything back to the instrument, and then back to the music and maybe the conductor, and then back to the music, and then kind of reacclimate yourself to the instrument and remember where you're at. Whereas I like to have my students, and I do this myself, have my music stand down lower. So I'm actually looking at the music, and then I can if I look at this music stand, I can see this whole keyboard. So I don't have to look and then keep looking back and forth and refocusing my eyes and my attention. So what I'm able to do is look at the music. I can see the keys, and then what else I can see peripherally? I can see the conductor. Because if I'm looking and I can see the conductor's arms moving like this, I don't have to look and stare at them. Plus, honestly, most of the time, the mallet parts are not something that might be driving the music like, say, the snare drum or the bass drum parts. The mallet parts, you're tending to play maybe woodwind or maybe some brass parts, okay? But you're playing melodic ideas with the winds, not necessarily a driving snare drum part going where you really have to be watching the conductor. You're going to listen as well, and you're playing these parts along with the band, okay? So you can look at the conductor and see them in a peripheral sense, okay? Now I know there's some people. The reason why I say this is that there's people that will have their students put their music stands all the way up here. So again, the idea is that they can see the music and they can see the conductor. But again, the music and the conductor are up here, but the instrument's all the way down here. I find having this, you have more chance of hitting wrong notes than this. Now, if you do use this, just be careful that your stand, a couple of things. Make sure that when you put the stand down, I don't know if you can see this, you can see my fingers underneath, okay? So the stand is not resting on the keys. You never want to rest the instrument or anything, the music stand. You don't want to rest anything aside from the instrument or the mallets or maybe a towel. You don't want to rest anything on the instrument, okay? Because you can actually break it. Don't rest anything on timpani. Don't rest anything on any instrument, okay? They're not tables, okay? But the music stand is high enough that I can put my fingers underneath there. So the bottom of the stand is not resting on the keys. It's up enough, okay? You want to make sure that the stand is nice and secure because you don't want to, we all have stands like this. You put it up and slowly it does this and it lowers. And then what will happen is as you're playing, it will lower, and then as you play, then you'll hear the keys hitting the music stand, okay? So again, positioning your body so you're close enough to the instrument, making sure you're striking the instrument at the proper spots, right in the middle of the keys, not on the notes. And again, you're employing the same technique, which is why for a lot of people like myself, for my high school drumline, I teach match grip, which is, as you hopefully all remember, is this. Because this technique, if I have a student play mallets, they play this technique. If I haven't played timpani, for the most part, they play this technique. If I haven't played snare drum, they play this technique. If I haven't played anything else, it's this technique, okay? Versus traditional, which uses a different set of muscles, and this is the only drum, snare drum, that's the only real drum that we utilize that technique in. Where match grip is universal across all the instruments, okay? You would never really see a mallet player play like this. Okay, we all play match grip, okay? So again, make sure your body's positioned the proper distance, using the right implements. Also, we talked about this with the other instruments. What you can also use is a towel on a music stand. So if you need to, you can place the mallets on the stand, or sometimes if you know that your parts only are here, you can actually use a towel and place it on this end of the instrument to place the mallets down. Again, hopefully this information has been very helpful for you. Best of luck in your percussive studies, and have a lot of fun.